For more than 5 decades, Ozzy Osbourne has been called many things: the Prince of Darkness, the Wild Man of Rock, the most unpredictable frontman in heavy metal. But what most people don't know is that Ozzy had a secret, a truth so surprising that fans didn't notice it until much later. It wasn't about drugs, it wasn't about fame, it wasn't even about Black Sabbath. It was something much deeper, something he hid behind jokes, chaos, and that famous, shaky voice. This chapter begins in 1979, the year he was fired from Black Sabbath. Everyone believed the story. Ozzy had gone too far. Too many drinks, too many drugs, too many missed rehearsals. But what nobody understood at the time was that Ozzy was playing a role he created to protect himself from something painful, something he never talked about. Behind the scenes, Ozzy's firing didn't destroy him, it transformed him. Instead of collapsing, he quietly began building something bigger than Black Sabbath. He started gathering musicians, experimenting with ideas, and shaping a new sound. He pretended to be lost, but in reality, he was planning the greatest comeback in metal history. Fans thought they knew Ozzy. They thought he was simply a clown, a chaos machine who stumbled from one scandal to another. But the truth was different. Ozzy was in complete control of the chaos. He used it, he fed off it, and he hid behind it. This was the first time Ozzy fooled the world, and no one realized it until years later. And that was only the beginning. When Ozzy stepped into the studio in 1980 to record Blizzard of Oz, most people assumed it would be a disaster, a washed-up singer trying to save his career. But behind the scenes, Ozzy already knew exactly what he wanted. He wasn't rebuilding, he was reinventing. He teamed up with Randy Rhoads, a young guitarist with angelic technique and a mind full of classical melodies. Everyone thought Ozzy chose Randy by luck. But the truth, Ozzy had been searching for someone like him for years, someone who could not only play metal, but elevate it, someone who could bring beauty into darkness. When the music industry expected Ozzy to fall, he quietly shaped an album that would redefine heavy metal forever. But he didn't brag about his vision. He didn't talk about the strategy. He wanted everyone to believe he was just winging it, that he didn't know what he was doing. That was the second time Ozzy fooled the world, and fans still didn't understand what was coming next. If Chapter 1 and 2 show Ozzy the strategist, Chapter 3 reveals the heartbreaking moment that broke him. When Randy Rhoads died in a shocking, sudden plane accident in 1982, the world mourned a rising legend. But for Ozzy, the pain ran deeper than anyone imagined. Fans saw the tears, the breakdowns, the lost look in his eyes. They thought they understood the grief. But what they didn't know was that Randy wasn't just a guitarist to Ozzy. He was the one person who gave Ozzy confidence when he had none. Randy believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself. For the first time, Ozzy couldn't hide behind jokes or insanity. The mask slipped. But even then, he fooled us all again. He pretended to be numb, broken, finished. People whispered that his career was over. But deep inside, he made a silent promise. He would keep going. For Randy. And that promise shaped everything he did next. As the 80s pushed forward, Ozzy continued to shock the world. The bat-biting incident, the Dove incident, crazy hotel stories, it all made headlines. People believed Ozzy was out of control, a wild animal with no plan, no sense, no stability. But here's the truth. Almost every time, Ozzy knew exactly what he was doing. Not harming himself, but building a brand. The media painted him as the madman of metal, and instead of fighting it, Ozzy embraced it. He leaned into the madness, amplified it, and used it as fuel. Because behind the scenes, he was a surprisingly calm, emotional, even sensitive man. A man who loved his family, A man who cried during movies. A man who worried more than he admitted. The world only saw the mask because Ozzy wanted it that way. He fooled us again. While fans imagined Ozzy partying non-stop, the real Ozzy spent most nights with his children, trying to be a better father than he believed he was. Sharon was the strategist. She built the empire. But Ozzy's heart was the core of it. He wasn't the irresponsible, careless father tabloids portrayed. He was present, even when he was struggling. He never bragged about this. He didn't want sympathy or applause, because the chaos was easier to talk about. The love he kept private. This contrast, wild icon versus gentle father, was one of the biggest secrets Ozzy ever hid. When the Osbournes launched in 2002, fans believed they were seeing the real Ozzy for the first time. The stuttering, the confusion, the mumbling. Many blamed drugs or age, but that wasn't the full truth. With Ozzy was on 14 different prescription medications at the time, not because he was a mess, but because doctors over-medicated him after decades of injuries, illnesses, and tour damage. The world thought he was losing his mind, but he wasn't. He was over-prescribed and exhausted. Once again, Ozzy fooled us all, not intentionally, but because the world misunderstood what it saw. In 2010, scientists discovered that Ozzy has a rare genetic mutation, one that helps his body process toxins differently from most people. Suddenly, decades of Ozzy myths made sense. He wasn't superhuman. His biology was simply unique. And even then, Ozzy laughed it off, pretending he was just lucky. But the truth stunned everyone. The man built an entire career around what people thought he was, not who he truly was. From Parkinson's symptoms to spinal surgery to endless injuries, Ozzy kept getting knocked down. Yet he always came back. And every time people said Ozzy is done, he shocked the world again. New tours, new albums, new energy. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was determination. Ozzy didn't want the world to see his fear, so he masked it with humor and bravado. Another moment where he fooled us all, not to deceive us, but to inspire himself. Most fans know Sharon as Ozzy's wife and manager, but few people understand how much she shaped his survival. She wasn't just behind the scenes. She was the shield, the strategist, the fighter who battled record labels, promoters, and even bandmates. Ozzy let the world think he was the madman, but Sharon was the architect of the empire. And Ozzy never corrected the story. Behind the heavy metal legend was a man who loved painting, silence, and long walks. A man who didn't enjoy fighting. A man who forgave too easily. A man who blamed himself for everything. He let the world think he was the monster, because it was easier. But those who knew him knew the truth. Ozzy Osbourne had one of the kindest hearts in rock. And that truth stayed hidden for decades. Now, in his later years, Ozzy has opened up more than ever before, and fans finally see the truth. Ozzy Osbourne fooled us all, not out of deception, but out of survival. He wasn't the madman. He wasn't the monster. He wasn't the uncontrollable force of chaos. He was a brilliant performer, a sensitive soul, a father, a survivor, and a man who turned pain into power. The world believed the mask, but now the real Ozzy is finally visible, and the truth is even more incredible than the myth.